Hello, everybody. This is Diane Armitage with the Catalyst Code, and I have a very special holiday Catalyst Code today. I am welcoming a very special client, actually, into my world today, Dr. Wolfgang Spangenberger. And Wolfgang is a pioneering figure in minimal invasive surgery, and he's a former chief of surgery with more than 30 years of experience as an oncology specialist. Well, drawing on his experiences, Wolfgang has authored several books to support caregivers and people in crisis, and most recently has published the first in a series on long-term caregiving. And now he's just published the Holiday Survival Guide for Caregivers, Staying Sane Through the Season. So Wolfgang, I'd like to welcome you into my Catalyst Code podcast, and thank you for being here.
Thank you that I'm here, that you allow me to participate.
Of course, I think this is an amazing conversation because I was reading that in the United States alone, I know you're in Germany, but in the United States alone, 23 million adults are in a caregiving role, which is more now than adults caring for children. I think that's extraordinary. What is it like in Europe? Is it similar in fashion? I mean, are you having these issues there as well?
We have the same issues. I think that's a problem of the whole Western world. Mm-hmm. And it is a similar problem here. It's maybe not the same number, but in the percentage of the population, it's comparable. Yes.
When we talk about epidemics, it's usually titled that way because there aren't enough services and there's not enough support to take care of the people in the middle of the crisis. Would you call this an epidemic?
I would do so. Yes. Yeah, it is. On one hand, it was known that this will happen, because we're all living in a society, we're just getting older and older, but still there is like a surprise that this is coming to the society at the same time. It's just a huge amount of people who are involved in that whole issue, in that whole story, and there is no material out there. The politics more or less leave the people alone. There is no backup for this, and sometimes it's surprising that nobody really found any kind of interest in this issue.
Well, now, how did you first get interested in this issue? I mean, not just this issue, but just people in crises, families in crises. How did you first get involved in this?
I got involved over time. It was not one event that triggered my activities on this stage. Sure, I was involved with my patients and I was involved with their relatives. And very quickly, I realized I could do a lot of surgical procedures, but specifically the relatives were not really addressed by me as a surgeon. Just as a little example, after I realized that I introduced a specific office hour just for the relatives, and this office hour was always crowded. Yes, there was no patient during this hour. There was just relatives who wanted to talk to me. And they were always like the same kind of questions. What I have to expect, I'm up to that. How will I deal with in the future with that? And at the beginning, we never give them any specific answers. On the other hand, I realized that specifically patients with dementia or Alzheimer's disease needed specific medical surgical approaches. It sounds maybe a little bit stupid, but just easy things like after you examine someone and you say, get dressed now, that is a huge challenge for someone who has dementia. So you cannot just send them in a room where their clothing is. So no, you have to prepare that room, that they exactly know where to start. Otherwise, they're starting with the jacket, and put the underwear at the last thing on. We're laughing about this, but that is a huge issue for such people.
Right, exactly. And didn't you get involved as well in natural catastrophes that were going on? Is medical help and that kind of thing as well?
Exactly. When I say the first step was the patients, yes, related to my profession. In addition, I'm volunteering in health organizations, this specific case, the Malteser. And here we are very often dealing with natural catastrophes or assassinations by a festival or whatever. And yes, there's no question about it. It's very traumatic for the people who are immediately involved. But I realized very soon that the helpers, the volunteering helpers, they really got not really attention, and they needed help. When there was, for example, an assassination where someone was murdered, they were out of work for weeks, so they needed a proper intervention to get over this. And there was, at the beginning, there was very no really resort where they could get a grip on.
Right. Wow.
And the third event maybe is that I have had then in my family by myself, say, the opportunity or the burden to have my father with dementia and to deal with the whole family with that issue. Therefore, I think I got a very different views on the helpers as well as dementia or Alzheimer's disease.
Correct. Certainly personal, for sure. It's just so interesting that you say that the supporters aren't really getting the attention. Now, this certainly applies to people in the profession as well, and all of the assisted living and everything, because there's not a lot of emotional and mental support services available to these people. But when you're an amateur and you're just taking care of mom or dad. And I had someone I was talking with the other day, and he said, I hadn't even realized I really was a caregiver until you defined it for me, because I'm over at mom's twice a day. I'm making meals for her. I'm taking her to the doctor. I'm doing all of this. It becomes this big event in your life that begins to destabilize everything else in your life. But because you love this person and because you care for this person, you don't really want to complain. You just want to keep making it happen and adjusting to it while your life kind of goes away, right?
Exactly. Yeah. That's an experience I've had over a very short period of time. All these people, the helpers, the caregivers, feel overwhelmed.
Right.
Yeah, but everything what comes up, they have no strategy. Their life is not organized in a way to deal with all the issues which are coming up. Right. That's the old life, which they have had before, as well as the new life now as a caregiver or to take care of a relative, for example. Yeah,
exactly. Well, as you know, I moved to Oregon for about a year because I always tell people I knew my mother was lying and I knew that something was up. And so I thought, you know what, I'm going to go there for a while and find out what happens. And it really was such a shift in my life. Business, all of these things that I would normally handle couldn't even be handled because it was a much larger issue than we expected. I love the fact that you put out a first in 4 books on long-term caregiving, and you called it the Unexpected Marathon. And I love how you say that it's an unexpected marathon because you've been dropped into this race that you haven't trained for, and you don't know where the finish line is. And
exactly.
What a perfect way to explain this situation. So you've got this book and you've begun this series on long-term caregiving, but now we have this holiday survival guide. Why did you feel it necessary to come out with a holiday survival guide? I know that seems like an obvious question for people who are in long-term caregiving, but I want to hear your answer.
Okay. So when we have the picture or the metaphor of a marathon, then the holiday, I think, feels for a lot of people like an additional mile or an additional hill they have to run. Yes, so it's an additional exhausting issue they have even to cover now. So, and then it's like a magnifying glass. The little problems are suddenly starting to get big problems, yes? If it's family issues, if it's conflicts, whatever it is.
Right.
Everybody is focused on you, is looking at you, You are confronted with all the expectations, Suddenly serious conversations are taking place over these days, and hopefully not, but very often it ends in a huge conflict of the family.
Correct. I think about this too, because typically there's one person in the family who takes on the brunt of the long-term caregiving, and everyone else's life goes on as is, for the most part. And so they have the same expectation of the family dinners, the holiday get-togethers, gift exchanges and events. And then you have friends around you who want you to be participating in events, and your schedule is completely awry with what you're now dealing with in this situation. One of the things that you brought up in the book that I thought was so great, by the way, the book looks like this, folks. Isn't that beautiful? Yeah. It's a perfect image of how a lot of long-term caregivers feel. In fact, I think a lot of people could read this book even if they weren't in a long-term caregiving situation. One of the things you mention is sort of the armchair quarterbacking of siblings, like people who suddenly show up around the holidays and you're engaged in dinners and things with them, and they have advice on how you're supposed to be taking care of mom or dad or any of that. How do you address this as a caregiver with your siblings?
At first, I would give the advice not to look for a conversation in this direction. Yes, so if you can avoid it, avoid it. Okay, maybe politics is a similar issue. Yeah, I would never give the advice during the holidays to discuss politics. So if it comes to a talk like that, yes, you have to prepare yourself a little bit for this kind of conversation. Yeah. And in this conversation, I think it's very, very important as an answer to give how you feel. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Not to make any accusations. Yes, you're wrong, or why can you say that? So no, you first talk about yourself. Mm-hmm. You say how you feel. So yeah, you feel not comfortable with that situation. Gently, you deal with this whole issue and bring it in a way like you want it to be, and then you give suggestions of a solution instead of an accusation. You're not answering then you should do or you should not do. You just say, no, I'm feeling not well with that, what you just said. But I would suggest it would be much easier for me here if you would help me. Possibly it is that you maybe take over the paperwork, whatever it is, I don't know. You give a solution and then the other person can react, and then it can create a normal conversation.
Correct. One of the things I hear a lot of is, my brother and I put my mother in assisted living, and I had friends around me who would say, well, she's with the assisted living. They can take her to the doctor's appointments. They can shuttle her around. And both my brother and I said, no, we want to be there in the doctor's offices with our mother because she's not understanding everything. And she certainly isn't going to have somebody from the assisted living there. It's just a shuttle that's dropping her off. We need to be involved in her care. And so that's when he and I began dividing up the doctor visits so that we could each be there and being in the office while they were discussing her situations. It's so important. But a lot of times you'll have people say, well, just, okay, well, don't spend time taking her to the doctor. Just get somebody else to take her.
Yeah, you're just touching a very important issue, because I see it more at the moment now from the doctor's point of view. Even if you're not trained, if you're not educated for caregiving, you possibly never did that before, but you're a very important person to give information, additional information, for whatever reason. Possibly your mom, your dad don't want to tell the doctor everything, or what was the history of the the problem. You can always then, as a relative, give very important information to the next level. Even when you're completely unprepared, you have no training, you have no idea what's coming up, in communication, you are very, very important.
Indeed, you're right. Yes. So like back to this holiday survival thing, you talked in there about surrendering perfection for presence. Now, give me an example of that. How do you mean that? Surrendering perfection for presence.
It's what we consider as important. Okay, so I think the perfection is a problem of expectations, and we are exposed to several different expectations. I think it's our own expectation, how we maybe experience Christmas, or what is our idea about the holiday season. Then we have the expectation of our surrounding, family, society. And then we have the expectations we are maybe pulling out of the social media, out of movies, how the holiday season should look like. So that is not necessarily real life. So it can be possibly much more important to be imperfect. So it's not completely clean, the living room, whatever it is, or the bed is not done, but the present, that the people can meet, that the people are together, that the family comes together and spends time together, lives time together. That is the important thing about the holidays, and everything else can step back. Absolutely. If it's nice and neat, that's fine, but it's just a little addition. It's like polishing your car.
Exactly.
What is important is that everything is functioning together. But
Right.
yes, you can polish it. But what do you have from a polished car when you have no engine in it? Yeah, or no a proper driver, whatever.
Very well said. Now, I know that the holidays add so much more stress, guilt, expectation, as you say, assumptions. What do you consider some warning flags of a caregiver moving into burnout?
Maybe first, it is not one sign. Yeah, it's an accumulation of different signs which you recognize over time, and it differs from person to person. But what you can always see is, for example, if you feel tired all the time, even if you have a good sleep, you don't feel rested, or you observe that you are eating much more than normally. Other people are not eating at all. Yeah, they stop eating, and eating is suddenly only a necessity.
Yes,
you're not
right.
enjoying the meal anymore. Okay, possibly you drink more caffeine than you done under normal circumstances. Maybe even alcohol. Yeah, that you feel numb with the caffeine. You try to get more energy, but you realize you are not getting more energy. At the end of the day, you even feel more tired. Your legs are heavy. You are not interested in issues around yourself. So what you practice is like a social withdrawal. Yeah, you're not calling your friends. You're not on the phone anymore. Yes, you're not going to the movie. When did you read your last book? Yeah, what do you do with your hobby? Or all these kind of things. Yeah, gives you a direction of that you're at your limits. That your body tells you, hey, it's enough. The battery is getting empty.
And what would you recommend to stop that or to intercede?
That differs from person to person, from situation to situation. That's difficult to answer. At first, it's like a warning sign, yeah? And that you have to think where you can simplify your life so that you have more space. You have to look after yourself. So yeah, consider yourself as a battery, yeah? You need some time at the loading station. What loads mean for you, that's different for everybody of us.
Right.
Maybe you have to go to wellness. Maybe you have to go for jogging. Maybe you have to go to a movie, whatever it is. But you have to take care for yourself. And you have to take time for yourself.
I like that. I like that a lot, especially during the holidays. So important.
Yeah. And even here, it's maybe just a walk outside and even maybe a walk alone.
Right.
Just half an hour to get fresh air, to get a little bit of sunlight. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's an oxygen shower.
An oxygen shower. I love that. No, I agree with you. I think that is imperative. But another thing that I loved in your book, your holiday survival guide for caregivers, is that you offered scripts. You offered a number of scripts for people when you had to draw a boundary line with people. And you talk in the book about gentle boundary lines. So can you expound on that a little bit?
Yeah, I said it before a little bit already. It is that you are not going in confrontation. I mean, it's easy to say no, yeah, but it's a little bit harsh. So maybe it is wiser to go a more gentle way in the sense that you first describe yourself. That where are you? What is your feeling? Yeah? Do you feel tired? Do you feel overwhelmed? Whatever it is. And then you suggest a possible solution. And you can end the boundary with that you say, oh, we look for another date. Or can we find a solution in the way that you take over whatever it is as a delegation? Yeah. So you don't say, I delegate that to you now. Yeah. And you have to finish that next week. Yeah. So no, you would not do that. So that the other one can react, that he can give an answer, and that hopefully a conversation will start here.
Right.
You're firm in your position. Gentle means not that you're weak. You're firm, but you make it in a nicer way. So it's like in the politics, they can be very harsh. They love it. But that's maybe here in this issue, we're talking about our families, yeah, and we want to live with them together for a long, long, long period. So we shouldn't burn anything and leave ashes behind us. Yeah. So we want to prepare the grounds that something can grow.
Exactly. Especially during the holidays. Especially during the holidays. You know, one of the questions I have when you're dealing with a parent or a spouse who has Alzheimer's or dementia, what is the most gentle way to treat them during the holidays?
Yeah, that's a very important issue we just bring up. So, I think you have two topics. One topic is keep the routine of the person who got Alzheimer as normal as possible. Don't change the routine because it's a holiday season or it is Christmas. So if you're eating at 6 p.m., eat at 6 p.m. If this person goes to bed at 9 p.m., then let him go at 9 p.m. And then you can start relaxed, an additional celebration with the rest of the family. Yeah, so that would be my main advice.
That's beautiful. Yeah.
And the other advice I would give is, it is known that people with dementia and Alzheimer are living in their past. So address that and make it enjoyable. So, for example, you can watch old movies, you can listen to old music, you can look to old photographs, and it's even possibly very nice for the whole family, even for the young kids. Mm-hmm. To see how grandpa was looking with 20 or 18, yeah, and how was his first bike ride and so on, yeah. That even can be very nice. I would not talk about the future. Then this person is out of the game, and that we should keep for the time after 9 p.m. to stay with this example.
Right. Beautiful. Beautiful. Well, now, if you were to give one last piece of advice or one sentence of support to caregivers during the holiday, what do you think that would be?
Yeah, I would say give, but don't let yourself taken advantage of. I would say listen, but don't lose your own voice. Love, but don't let your heart be abused. Yeah, make a difference in the life of others and yourself, in your own life. And give yourself as many kisses as there's space on your face.
I love that. It reminds me of when Bob Proctor used to say, I love myself.
Yeah.
When you are a caregiver, the last thing you think of is taking care of yourself and appreciating yourself for the role that you've put yourself in and that you are graciously in. And it's a gift that you're giving these people, you know? And so it's a wonderful space for you to be in and grow in, as long as you understand that taking care of yourself is absolutely key.
Maybe one last advice, yeah, because we can come in during the Christmas time in situations where we don't know how we should react. And I keep always two sentences in my mind when I come in similar situations. Is show the other person that you love him or her and make decisions where you're sure that you don't have to regret them later.
Very well said. Say that again. I want to hear it one more time.
So when you have to make decisions, consider always that you don't have regrets in the future about that.
It's beautiful. This is beautiful. I really appreciate this. So the Holiday Survival Guide for Caregivers looks like this, is available at Amazon. And so you can find it under Holiday Survival Guide for Caregivers. I'll have it in my show notes as well. I think it's a very low price, but I know that you want to get it out to as many caregivers as possible. So I think at Amazon, it's $9.99 for the printed book and $4.99 for the Kindle. If there are associations out there who are interested in getting this information to their audiences, their clientele, by all means, you know, there's licensing available through you for this particular book, and there's also printing that can be done for the actual books. So there's still time to get this done and get this out there when the holiday season is really, the brunt is about to begin. I think too, you had made a note that this is good even in January because so many people are still reeling from the holidays and trying to rebalance their lives. So I think it is a perfect gift to give anybody. It's a perfect gift to give yourself, even through January. So thank you so much for being on this call. Anything else you'd like to add, or are we closing this up?
No, we're closing that up here at this
Closing
point.
it up with a bow. All right. Thank you so much for being here, Wolfgang. Really appreciate it. Everyone, you have a beautiful day, and we will talk with you again soon from the Catalyst Code.
Okay. Thank you.